Hi, and welcome to Three Questions With. Got my friend Sabrina with us from Sabrina Louisa Consulting. Sabrina, good afternoon. Welcome to the show.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
So let's start at the beginning, Sabrina. Tell us a little bit about your business. What do you do?
Sure. I am an HR consultant and strategist. I work with small businesses to help them make sure they're compliant with all the local and federal laws. And then from there, move on to doing the best they can for their employees within their budget and help them attract and retain the kind of employees they want to have around long term.
It's really interesting, Sabrina, because that's become a major issue, retaining and obtaining employees, because there's just a lot of companies, offering sweet deals. I'm hearing from friends going, I just got a cold call one day, someone's offering me $10,000 more than I'm making. And it's kind of hard to turn that down, Kev. So you're seeing that, kind of just people just finding a better opportunity.
Absolutely. And I think that's the hard part, right? Sometimes companies can't compete on dollars, but they can compete on life, right? And that's where this whole question between, do you have remote? Do you have hybrid? What do you do? How do you work with your people? And I have to say, out of all the clients I work with, they've had fairly low turnover ratios since the pandemic began because they were willing to meet their employees where they were at. One of them, which, in the beginning of the pandemic kept saying, hey, we're going to go back in a few months. We're going to go back in a few more months. We're going to go back in a few more months, has dropped talk of going back into an office altogether at this point.
Nice.
Not to say that they won't, but they've learned their people are working hard from home, right? People are happier, and not gonna lie, they're turning that head cap, like that overhead from the business space into benefits for their employees, into product improvement, into team meetings. And it's worked out really well so far, but it can be a hard line to ride if you're a small business.
Absolutely, because it's that psychological. We think if everyone's in the building, or hey, it just doesn't feel the same on Zoom. I just can't walk over to your cube and say, geez, I want to tell you about my day. I got bad news, things like that. But it's interesting, Sabrina, because I do teach at the university. And this is my 5th year. My first year or two teaching, when I would speak to my students, what's important? Money. That was it, Sabrina. Last year, work-life balance, can I work from home? All the things you said. And I just remember standing there smiling, going, this generation gets it better than my generation, where we were all about making money and working hard and climbing. They're like, no, Kevin, it has to be a balance. We need time for ourselves. Are you seeing that shift with the people you're interacting with?
Yes, 100%. People, there's still a generational divide on it in a lot of cases. But I think it's because it's hard to let go of old ways of thinking. But yes, the younger generation that is coming into the companies I work with, they want to have the option of working remote or hybrid. They want to be able to go to the doctor, take their animal to the vet, pop down to the bank without having to explain themselves. And something I've long pushed with the companies I work with is productivity. What really matters to you? That somebody sits and grinds for 8 hours a day, or that they get their job done ahead of target? And everybody wants somebody who gets their job done ahead of target, right? So I talk to them about how I work. I've always been somebody that went to an office, put in my 8-hour day, but I was pretty hardcore about clocking in on time and clocking out on time, even when I was like getting promotions and moving up the ranks, because I didn't want my life to get overtaken by work. I spent a lot of time at work not doing anything because there wasn't something to be done. And I would ask for more to do. Part of that's how I got promoted, but it wasn't because there was a lot to do. When I could work at home and do my laundry in between calls, which takes 5 minutes to throw it from the washer to the dryer, turned on, it's less time than I know people spent going to the break room every hour for a snack or a water or a coffee or whatever, you'd see people standing at other people's desks for 20 minutes.
Yep.
You can have so much better life balance if you're not forced to just be sitting at a computer for 8 hours a day.
Yeah.
And that's what I try to help my clients look at is, do you want the work to get done? And do you want it to get done well? Or do you just want to know somebody sitting at their desk so that you could call on them at a moment's notice because you feel like it? Mostly people want the work to get done and they want it to get done well.
I agree with what you said, though. For what I see with my friends and companies they work with, a lot of it is a generational issue. I have a family member that works at a company, and it was shown that most of them can work from home, but the CEO just won't accept it. He's like, no, they have to be in the building because we have the building, like we have to use the building. And, no matter how many people look, nothing changed in this 2 years they were working from home. He has trouble accepting it because that's how we grew up. Everybody came into the office every day. So it's that mind change especially for the older generation. Are you seeing that?
I am. And I will say it seems to be a divide. From the people I'm meeting and talking to, it does seem to be a divide in the generation above mine, right? I'm Gen X. And the CEOs I work with in my realm, they tend to look for hybrid, right? They still cling a little to that in office because that's what they did, that's what they knew, but they also have seen how well people do remotely. And they're more interested in, productivity and response, not in just the butts in seats kind of a deal. But yeah, a lot of the older generation of CEOs that I come across, they're just like, how do I know that somebody's doing their job? Like, how can I trust that they're doing their job? And you have to trust them. And then I say something that they don't like. Why did you hire them if you aren't going to trust them to do their job? And they get stuck on that. And I actually had one person real upset with me about that. They were like, oh, you're judging me. And I said, yes, actually I am. Because did you just hire the person who took the lowest wage? Or did you hire the person that you were confident was going to do their job? And then they kind of go, I never thought of it that way. And it's like, right. If you can think about, make sure you get the right person to do the job. You treat them well, you support them, you deal with life's craziness that comes up, you're going to have people that stick around for a long time. And
nice.
It's not easy, but if you can shift your mindset, that's what I work with my clients on, right? Shifting their mindset to be people focused.
I like that. And it's also understanding, what the next generation is looking for. It's, it's not the same as my generation was looking for. So we have to make that adjustment, what's important to them. And, a lot of it is the work-life balance, and having time, off when they need it, or just, hey, you know what, I need a mental health day. My generation, we never thought of that. Like, oh, you know what, I feel that burnout coming on. I need to step back for a day and just refocus.
Yeah.
I never would have ever said that to my boss in a million years. But, this generation understands that better than we do. And we have to accept that, okay, if that's what they need, we need to honor that. And that's hard for a lot of older people.
That's so true. And, it's funny you say that because in my early career, I would never have said it. And I never did, right? I just head down, did all my job. But my last corporate job, I was in for 13 years. And I moved up the ladder from junior to head of HR. I worked very closely with the CEO. He knew who I was. He knew all of my, hobbies and craziness and all the stuff that I did. And I felt very comfortable with being honest with him. And I would say it was about 6 or 7 years ago, I actually said those words to him one day. I lived in Los Angeles. The commute was awful. I got up, got myself together, got in my car, started driving, and the traffic was at a standstill. And he was not into remote work back then. I didn't have a laptop at home or anything. And I just hit a wall that morning, and I turned my car around. I went home and I called him and I said, I'm taking a mental health day. I cannot face my traffic. And he was like, okay. And I was like, didn't know what to do with myself. Wow, he took that. And then we started instituting that with people, letting them know, hey, if you hit a wall, talk to us. And internally as HR, I made a point, like I wasn't everybody's friend. HR can't ever be, but I tried my best to be everybody's safe space. So if they were struggling, they could come to me and know that I would work with them to come up with a solution that worked for everybody. And that is also another realm I work with my clients on, is how do you get your employees' trust? Because when you get their trust, you get their honesty, and then everything can work better for everybody. And it can be hard to open that dialogue, but when you open that dialogue, the world changes. And honestly, I give a lot of applause to the young generation because they're making change happen rapidly. And I like to joke that Instagram is the downfall of corporate America, because seeing people's lives updated regularly and the things people get to do, that didn't happen back when we were young. It didn't happen every day. Like, you were lucky if you could share photos online with people in any capacity in my early career. So it's like, now everybody sees, oh, hey, I get to work from a beach house cottage for a week, right? And again, admittedly, my last corporate job, I had a great CEO and I used to negotiate that with him. I would be like, hey, I want to go to Hawaii for a week. Can I go next week and work 2 hours every morning and take the rest of the day as vacation time? And he was like, okay.
Why not?
Because I got my work done.
That's key.
And that's what mattered. And then I got a week vacation in Hawaii, and it was like, I came back restored and I could work 50 hours a week and get everything done. And he never saw any dip in productivity. So I think if you can look at it that way, you open up the world of employee engagement in your company.
Makes perfect sense. Sabrina, what's the best way for people to reach out to you? How can they learn more?
My email is probably the easiest, which is sabrina@sabrinalouisa.com. Or they can go to my website, which is sabrinalouisa.com, and there are a couple different ways on there to get in touch with me.
Awesome. Sabrina, I appreciate you taking a couple minutes to call into the show. And as always, thanks for being my friend.
Yeah, thanks, Kev.